A bronze-armored warrior stands at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, his red cloak flowing in the wind, abs glistening like carved marble, ready to face impossible odds with nothing but raw courage and a thirst for glory. Sound familiar? Hollywood has sold us a lie about the Spartans that's so compelling, so visually stunning, that we've forgotten to ask the most important question. What were these warriors really like when the cameras weren't rolling? If you're ready to discover the shocking truth about history's most misunderstood civilization, hit that like button and join thousands of history enthusiasts who refuse to accept Hollywood's version of the past. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell, because what you're about to learn will change everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. You might be surprised to learn that the Spartans weren't the superhumans you think they were. From their training to their social structure, the Spartan way of life was far more complex and nuanced than you might expect. The bronze-bodied gods of war that grace our movie screens bear little resemblance to the actual humans who lived, fought and died in the ancient Peloponnese over 2 millennia ago. Get ready to have your perception of Spartan history flipped on its head. We're exposing the hidden truth about their society, revealing shocking practices that challenge everything you thought you knew. The real Sparta was a place where mothers handed shields to their sons with the words "return with it" or "on it," where children were literally stolen from their families, and where the state's survival depended on one of history's most brutal systems of human bondage. The Agoge stands as one of history's most extreme educational systems, designed not merely to create soldiers, but to forge human weapons capable of defending Sparta's unique way of life. This wasn't summer camp with swords. This was a systematic program of psychological and physical conditioning that began before a child could even walk. Every Spartan male's journey started at birth with a terrifying ritual. Newborns were examined by a council of elders who decided whether the child was strong enough to serve the state. Infants deemed weak or deformed were allegedly taken to Mount Taygetus and left to die. Though recent archaeological evidence suggests this practice may have been less common than ancient sources claimed. At age 7, boys were torn from their mother's arms and enrolled in the Agoge. They lived in communal barracks under the supervision of older boys and adult instructors called paidonomos. These weren't kindly teachers. They were harsh disciplinarians who believed that suffering created strength. The boys slept on beds of rushes. They had to gather themselves, often going without shoes to toughen their feet, and wearing only a single cloak regardless of weather. Food was deliberately kept scarce. The boys were encouraged to steal to supplement their meager rations, but if caught, they faced severe punishment. Not for stealing, but for being caught. This taught them cunning and resourcefulness, while maintaining the fiction that theft was wrong. One famous story tells of a boy who stole a fox and hid it under his cloak. When questioned, he allowed the animal to claw through his stomach rather than admit to the theft, ultimately dying from his wounds. Physical training was relentless. Boys engaged in wrestling, running, javelin throwing, and dancing. Yes, dancing. Spartan military dances were complex choreographed movements that taught coordination, rhythm, and unit cohesion. They learned to move as one, to anticipate their comrades' actions, and to maintain formation even in the chaos of battle. The psychological conditioning was equally important. Boys were taught to suppress individual desires in favor of collective needs. They learned to speak in short, direct sentences, giving us the word laconic from Lacedaemon, another name for Sparta. When a Persian envoy boasted that Persian arrows would blot out the sun, the Spartan Dienekes reportedly replied, "Good, then we'll fight in the shade." At age 20, young men became eligible for military service, but the Agoge wasn't over. They continued to live in barracks, eat in communal mess halls called syssitia, and submit to military discipline until age 30. Only then could they establish their own households, though they remained subject to military call-up until age 60. Daily life in Sparta revolved around a single purpose: maintaining military readiness. Physical fitness wasn't just encouraged, it was mandatory. Men exercised daily in gymnasiums, while women participated in athletic competitions that shocked other Greeks. Spartan women ran, wrestled, and threw javelins, their bodies bronzed by sun and hardened by exercise. Spartan homes were deliberately austere, lacking the decorative pottery and furniture common in other Greek cities. Citizens were forbidden from engaging in trade or crafts, which were left to the perioeci, free non-citizens who handled commerce and manufacturing. This meant that Spartan citizens focused entirely on military and political affairs, creating a society of professional warriors supported by a complex economic system they deliberately chose not to understand. The Syssitia represented the heart of Spartan social life. These communal dining halls brought together men of different ages in groups of about 15. Each member contributed food from their estate, and those who couldn't afford their share lost their citizenship. The meals were notoriously simple. The famous black broth was a soup made from pork, blood, and vinegar that visitors from other cities found revolting. Marriage customs reflected Sparta's military priorities. Brides were typically older than in other Greek cities, around 18 to 20, when they were considered physically mature enough to bear strong children. The wedding ceremony was shocking by contemporary standards. The bride's head was shaved, and she was dressed in men's clothing. Even after marriage, men continued to live in barracks until age 30, visiting their wives secretly at night. This wasn't cruelty. It was policy. The state wanted to ensure that sexual desire remained strong enough to produce children, while preventing the formation of family bonds that might compete with loyalty to the state. Women in Sparta enjoyed freedoms unknown elsewhere in Greece. They could own property, divorce their husbands, and speak freely in public. They were expected to be physically fit and mentally sharp, able to manage estates while their husbands were away at war. The Spartan military system was built on the concept of the citizen soldier. Every Spartan male was first and foremost a warrior, with all other considerations secondary. This created a professional military class unmatched in the ancient world, but it also created dangerous vulnerabilities. Spartan citizens, called Spartiates, numbered only about 8,000 to 10,000 at the height of their power. This tiny elite ruled over a population of perhaps 200,000 people, including the perioeci and the helots, state-owned serfs who worked the land. The mathematics were terrifying. Every Spartan citizen was outnumbered 20 to 1 by people who had every reason to hate them. This demographic reality shaped every aspect of Spartan society. The constant fear of helot rebellion meant that Spartans could never fully demobilize. They maintained a secret police force called the Cryptia, made up of young Spartans who hunted and killed helots who showed signs of leadership or rebellion. This wasn't random violence. It was systematic terror designed to prevent organized resistance. The famous Spartan phalanx was the ultimate expression of their military philosophy. These dense formations of bronze-armored warriors, armed with spears and shields, were nearly unstoppable when properly deployed. But the phalanx required extensive training and perfect coordination. Spartan weapons and armor were functional rather than decorative. The bronze cuirass, greaves, and the distinctive lambda-marked shield were designed for protection and intimidation. The red cloak was practical. It hid bloodstains and helped warriors identify friend from foe in the confusion of battle. Sparta's rise to power was as remarkable as its eventual fall was inevitable. At its peak, around 400 BCE, Sparta controlled much of the Peloponnese and had defeated Athens in the devastating Peloponnesian War. But the seeds of destruction were planted in the very success that made them great. The Spartan constitution, attributed to the legendary lawgiver Lycurgus, was designed to prevent change. 2 kings shared power, balanced by a council of elders and 5 ephors elected annually. This system worked brilliantly for maintaining internal stability, but proved disastrous when external circumstances changed. The decline began with demographics. Spartan citizenship was hereditary and exclusive, but casualties from constant warfare steadily reduced their numbers. By 371 BCE, when the Thebans defeated them at the Battle of Leuctra, there were fewer than 2,000 full Spartan citizens left. The system that had created invincible warriors had also created a society incapable of replacing them. Economic factors accelerated the decline. Sparta's rejection of commerce and manufacturing meant they remained dependent on agriculture in an increasingly monetized world. When other cities developed professional armies funded by trade and taxation, Sparta lacked the resources to compete. The final blow came from an unexpected source: their own success. The Spartan victory over Athens brought them into contact with Persian gold and foreign luxuries. Despite laws against it, wealth began to accumulate in private hands. Young Spartans, seeing opportunities beyond their borders, began to question the austere lifestyle that had defined their ancestors. The Battle of Leuctra in 371 BCE marked the end of Spartan dominance. Theban general Epaminondas used innovative tactics to defeat the previously invincible Spartan phalanx, killing their king and breaking their army. More importantly, he liberated the Helots of Messenia, destroying the economic foundation of Spartan power. Despite their eventual defeat, Spartan military innovations continue to influence military thinking today. The concept of elite units, intensive training, and unit cohesion can be traced directly to Spartan practices. Modern special forces units around the world study Spartan methods, adapting ancient principles to contemporary warfare. The Spartan emphasis on physical fitness and mental toughness has been adopted by military organizations worldwide. The US Marine Corps, British SAS, and Israeli Defense Forces all incorporate elements of Spartan training philosophy. The idea that soldiers must be conditioned to operate under extreme stress while maintaining unit cohesion is fundamentally Spartan in origin. Leadership development was another Spartan innovation that remains relevant. Spartan officers were expected to lead from the front, sharing the dangers and hardships of their men. This principle of leadership by example has become standard in professional military organizations. The concept of the warrior ethos, the idea that soldiers must be prepared to sacrifice everything for their comrades and mission, is essentially Spartan. Modern military training emphasizes building bonds between soldiers that transcend individual survival instincts. The Spartan legacy extends far beyond military history into literature, art, and popular culture. Ancient Greek writers like Plutarch and Xenophon created the heroic image of Sparta that still captivates us today. Renaissance scholars rediscovered Spartan texts during the revival of classical learning, and political philosophers like Machiavelli and Rousseau used Sparta as an example of civic virtue. Modern cinema has created its own version of Sparta, reaching its peak with the 2007 film 300. While visually spectacular, these movies present a fantasy version of Spartan society that bears little resemblance to historical reality. The real Spartans were skilled warriors, but they were also human beings with fears, doubts, and limitations. The enduring appeal of Spartan culture reflects something deeper in human nature: our admiration for those who dedicate their lives to something greater than themselves. The Spartan ideal of service, sacrifice, and excellence continues to resonate across cultures and centuries. Perhaps the most persistent myth about Sparta is that they were undefeatable in battle. This image has been reinforced by movies, books, and popular culture, but the historical record tells a different story. The Spartans were exceptional warriors, but they were not invincible. The Battle of Thermopylae, while genuinely heroic, was actually a defeat. King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans died fighting, along with about 700 Thespians who are usually forgotten in popular retellings. The battle delayed the Persian advance by just 3 days and had little strategic impact on the war's outcome. Even at their peak, Spartans lost battles. They were defeated by the Argives at Hysiae in 669 BCE, by the Arcadians at Orchomenus in 418 BCE, and most dramatically by the Thebans at Leuctra in 371 BCE. These defeats weren't flukes, they were tactical defeats by skilled opponents who had learned to counter Spartan methods. Archaeological evidence has revealed that Spartan equipment and tactics were not significantly superior to those of other Greek cities. Their bronze armor, spears, and shields were well made, but not exceptional. What made them effective was training and discipline, not superior technology. The myth of Spartan invincibility also ignores their greatest weakness, an inability to adapt. While other Greek cities experimented with new formations, weapons, and tactics, Sparta remained wedded to methods that had worked in the past. When Epaminondas introduced the oblique phalanx at Leuctra, the Spartans had no answer. Popular culture often portrays Spartans as savage brutes who glorified violence and showed no mercy to enemies. While Spartan society was indeed harsh by modern standards, this image oversimplifies a complex civilization with its own moral codes and ethical principles. The treatment of helots was undoubtedly brutal, but it wasn't random violence. The Spartan system of helotage was a form of state slavery designed to provide economic support for the warrior class. While morally reprehensible, it was systematic rather than sadistic. Helots could earn their freedom through military service. The practice of infanticide, while shocking to modern sensibilities, was not unique to Sparta. Many ancient societies practiced exposure of unwanted infants, usually due to economic necessity rather than eugenic ideology. Recent archaeological work has found little evidence of mass infant burial sites that would support claims of widespread infanticide in Sparta. Spartan treatment of prisoners of war was actually more humane than that of many contemporary societies. They rarely enslaved Greek prisoners, preferring to ransom them or exchange them for their own captured warriors. Religious practices in Sparta were surprisingly conventional for ancient Greece. They worshipped the same gods as other Greeks, participated in pan-Hellenic festivals, and respected traditional Greek customs. The idea that Spartans were irreligious barbarians is contradicted by extensive archaeological evidence. Strip away the myths and legends, and we find that the Spartans were human beings dealing with the same fundamental challenges that face all societies: how to maintain security, prosperity, and social cohesion. Their solutions were extreme, but they were responses to real problems. Spartan society was built on genuine values that many people still admire today. They prized courage, loyalty, and self-sacrifice. They believed in the importance of physical fitness and mental toughness. They valued service to the community over personal gain. The Spartan emphasis on equality among citizens was radical for its time. While they excluded women, foreigners, and helots from full citizenship, Spartan males enjoyed remarkable equality regardless of wealth or family background. Kings ate the same food as common soldiers, and rich citizens lived in the same simple houses as poor ones. Spartan women enjoyed freedoms that were unusual in the ancient world. They could own property, engage in business, and speak freely in public. They were expected to be physically fit and mentally sharp, capable of managing complex households and estates. The Spartan commitment to education, while harsh by modern standards, was comprehensive and effective. The Agoge wasn't just military training. It included music, poetry, and rhetoric. Spartans were expected to be cultured as well as courageous. Family relationships in Sparta were complex and often affectionate, despite the institutional barriers. Letters and inscriptions revealed genuine love between spouses, parents, and children. The system that separated families physically was designed to strengthen rather than weaken social bonds. The Spartan sense of honor was sophisticated and nuanced. They distinguished between different types of courage, recognized the importance of moral character, and understood that true strength comes from self-control rather than aggression. Even their treatment of enemies reflected a coherent moral code. Spartans respected brave opponents, honored truces and agreements, and generally followed the rules of war recognized by other Greeks. Their reputation for ruthlessness came from their unwillingness to compromise on matters of principle, not from mindless cruelty. The real Spartans were neither the marble gods of Hollywood nor the savage brutes of popular imagination. They were people who made extreme choices in service of values they held dear. Their society was flawed, often cruel, and ultimately unsustainable, but it was also remarkably successful for several centuries. Understanding the real Spartans helps us understand ourselves. Their struggles with balancing individual desires against collective needs, their efforts to maintain traditional values in a changing world, and their ultimate failure to adapt to new realities are challenges that every society faces. The Spartans offer both inspiration and warning. They show us what human beings can achieve when they dedicate themselves completely to a cause. But they also demonstrate the dangers of inflexibility. The legacy of Sparta lives on not in the bronze abs of movie heroes, but in the ongoing human struggle to balance freedom with discipline, individual rights with collective responsibility, and the desire for security with the need for growth. The real Spartans, complex and contradictory as they were, have much to teach us about the possibilities and limitations of human nature. The truth about Sparta is far more fascinating than any Hollywood fantasy. If this deep dive into real history has opened your eyes to the complexity of the ancient world, smash that like button and share this with someone who still thinks the Spartans were exactly like the movies. Subscribe for more myth-busting historical content that reveals the incredible true stories behind the legends. Because when you dig beneath the surface, reality is always more interesting than fiction.